biologists will catch them, and we put them in a little bat bag, a little cloth bag, and we tie it up and we hang it up and we leave them for like an hour or so before we take their weight and measure them, because we want them to poop out all the food they've been eating so we can get an accurate weight. And in an hour, they can drop their body temperature pretty significantly. And sometimes it can take a half an hour to warm them back up again. So when you find a cold, and they'll seem really lifeless if they're in deep torpor, they'll be really cold and they won't be moving and they'll be really stiff. You might think they're dead, but they're not dead. You have to warm them up first and see if they will come back to life before you determine whether you've got a cold bat that's a dead bat versus a cold bat that's a torpid bat. So torpor is actually pretty important to know when you're out finding bats like downtown. So like I said, bats are really unique in that they only usually have a slow rate of reproduction. They only have one pup a year normally. So little brown bats only have one pup a year. Most bat species only have one pup a year, but they have a really big baby. Like this looks like a small pup because it's on someone's finger. This is like a newborn baby. It's a Yuma myotis, which is about the same size as a little brown. But this bat is up to 30% of the mother's body weight at birth. So in human terms, that's like, it's like humans giving birth to a toddler, because it'd be like a 30-pound baby, right? It's a little frightening. But so they give birth to a single really big pup. And like I said, the timing of birth varies depending on the weather. But generally our babies in Alberta are born, they start being born either in late May or early June. But again, it can vary depending on the season. It can vary significantly if we've had a really cold, wet spring. And when the moms go out to hunt for insects every night, they leave all the pups behind. So the pups are just, they're born with these great big giant feet, you can see. These big clodhopper feet. And they can hang on really well, so they get left behind in the roost with all their little pup friends, because that's why they hang out in big colonies, and it keeps the pups all warm. Yeah. So that's babies and bats. So then it takes 4 to 5 weeks before the pups get to an adult size. So they grow really fast. The mother is feeding them huge amounts of milk every night. By the time a pup reaches its adult size, it's not quite flying yet. But when it starts to fly, it is still nursing because it has to learn how to hunt yet. So it's kind of like having Michael Phelps as a baby. Like because flying is the most energetically expensive thing you can do. So these babies are using vast amounts of energy. They come home, they're hungry. And then mom is actually eating more than her weight in insects in a night just to keep up with the lactation demand, the milk demand, to feed these full-grown pups that are learning to fly. So the moms work hard. So they start flying probably around July to August, and you can have some, depending on the year, you could have some late flyers in late August. So in the time that you guys might be walking the downtown looking for birds or bats, you could still have some juveniles. Now the thing with juveniles, when they first start flying, they're really bad at it. So a lot of the times they'll get tired and they'll end up hanging in weird places, and people find them on the sides of buildings, or they crash land on the ground. And sometimes they just need a little help to get put back up on a tree, on a tree trunk, or on the side of a building, so they can get enough height so they can take off again, so they can fly. So in July and August, if you get bats on the ground, it might not be a sick bat. Like sometimes people will tell you if you find a bat on the ground, it's probably a sick bat. You should be careful with bats that are on the ground, but in that time period, it could be just a pup that is really bad at flying and is crashed on the ground. So, so the resident bats that we have in Calgary, in the downtown core, most likely are little browns, big browns, and silver-haired bats. This is a great picture of a big brown bat. Now, if you look at his face, you can see he's got a big eye. These guys, they're big browns, but they're twice the size of a little brown. But if you found a big brown and you didn't know how big a little brown was, you'd still think this guy was little because they're still small. But if you look at his face, he's got these big chubby cheeks that don't have a lot of fur. So he's got sort of a high eye line. So you can see his nose sticks out. So if you find a bat and you get a good picture of its face, sometimes we can tell if it's a little brown or a big brown. I'm just gonna go back for a second and go back to the picture I had of the little brown. Whoop, there. Now this is a little brown Myotis. And so you can see his little cheeks are, he's got whiskers and lots more fur on his face, and he doesn't have those big cheeks, and his hairline comes down way over his eyes. So he does, you can tell if you get a good look at their faces, sometimes you can sort of tell them apart. Now the Myotis are really difficult to find, to discriminate just by looking at them. So little brown bats and like long-legged Myotis and long-eared, well, long-eared Myotis usually you can tell because they have the big ears. But the little Myotis species are very similar looking. So you have to take a measurement of your forearm, which is like from your wrist to your elbow. We measure that bone, and it's just millimeters in difference that you use to tell the different species apart. So this is a silver-haired bat that somebody found on the ground. They took a nice picture of and sent to me. And you can tell it's a silver-haired bat because they're way darker than those Myotis. You can see they're much blacker looking, especially in Alberta. They consistently are this dark color. I actually have found them on the West Coast, in coastal BC. They can be chocolate brown, which is kind of cool. But it messes you up because you think you found a big brown bat, but then you look at it and it's actually a silver-haired bat. But all of our silvers are usually this black color with these white frosted tips on the backs of their fur. So the migration for the silver-haired, the hories, and the red bats usually starts about mid-August. And that's when the bats start moving. Now, even our hibernating species move. So there's movement that occurs at the middle of August onwards until you start getting that consistent frost. The bats are all moving. So the migratory bats are starting to move south again. The hibernating bats are moving from their summer roosts to their winter roosts. So they'll be looking for deep crevices underground where they have those stable cold temperatures, or caves or mines. In Alberta, we only know about 3 or 4 places where bats hibernate. And we know they're using crevice habitat somewhere. They're probably going to the mountains and finding deep crevices. We do know of some big browns that roost in deep crevices along the South Saskatchewan River. But we really don't know where bats are hibernating. It's one of those big mysteries in Alberta and British Columbia, actually. It's one of the things that we're trying to get a handle on, but it's a very difficult question to answer because they're hard to track. So if you put radio tags on them, as soon as they go underground, you lose the signal from any radio tracking. So they're impossible to find. We spent a lot of money trying to find them. Have not found them. So the migratory species, they have a few other things they have to contend with. Like I said before, was the wind energy. So the big wind farms in the southern Alberta, these migratory species like the hoary bats have been killed at these sites. In Alberta, silver-haired bats are the most common ones that are killed at our wind energy sites. Hoary bats, red bats, and silver-haired bats are now listed as sensitive species because of mortality at hot wind energy sites in Alberta. Across their distribution, hoary bats are a concern. Biologists, there was a recent paper that was published, and they looked at the rates of mortality and the number of wind farms and the projections for the development of wind energy. And they predicted in 50 years we were going to see a significant drop in the number of hoary bats, so that it was, they were basically put them on an endangered species list. And by 90 years, they figured they'd be extinct. And that was before we had this huge ramp up of wind energy projects. So all of those timelines have sort of been moved a little closer. There is mitigation. The wind energy guys are trying to figure out what they can do to stop killing bats at wind energy sites. One of the most effective mitigation is to actually lock the rotors in place on nights during that, so it's like a 6-week period when these bats are migrating. So if they lock the turbines in place, which they can do, especially on warm nights with low wind. Those are the times when most of the bats are moving. If it's high wind or cold temperatures or raining, the bats will just hunker down and they're not flying. So most of the bats are flying through when it's those low wind conditions on warm nights. So even if they just did that at night on those kinds of dates, those kinds of temperatures in that 6-week window, it would help immensely. The problem is with the new turbines, they've actually figured out how to make more money off of those low wind speeds. Before they're kind of like, oh yeah, we can do that. But now at low wind speeds, they can actually generate enough energy to make it worthwhile. So a lot of the wind energy producers, they're not consistent in their use of mitigation across North America, and that's problematic. I think our Alberta people have been trying to follow a lot of that mitigation, and it is a concern for them. But the problem is that the mitigation is still only like 50%. So they've reduced it by 50%, but they're still killing bats. So it's still a problem. And they're still trying to find an answer, and they still haven't come up with a good answer yet. So this is an ongoing problem. Now there's 2 ways the bats actually get killed at these sites. They can get hit by the wind turbine. Actually, they run into it and it hits them. The other way is when those wind turbines are turning, the tips of the rotors, even at low wind speeds, can be moving up to 240 kilometers an hour. So when they're spinning like that, they actually generate a zone of low pressure around the tips of the wind turbines, the rotors. And when the bats are flying through, they might not even contact the wind turbine itself, but they fly into this zone of low air pressure. And what happens is their lungs expand, and it causes internal damage to their lungs. And they call that barotrauma. And they basically hemorrhage from inside, and it kills them. So that's a problem that we haven't quite figured out. So the other problem that we have is that bats can hit windows. And we're like, well, why do they hit windows? Like, what's going on? Like, shouldn't they be able to see that with their echolocation? Because that's what bats use, right? So they use a form of navigation at night where they're basically screaming at the top of their lungs and listening for the echoes coming back. Now, when I say they're loud, bats, when they're echolocating, can be echolocating at up to 120 decibels. That's like that's like the level of sound at a really loud rock concert. It's really loud. And it's so loud, actually. Here's another interesting fact for you. When they're echolocating, when they actually call, they can basically disengage their hearing, the bones in the ear, so that they can't hear themselves. Because if they could hear themselves, they could make themselves go deaf. They're so loud. And then they re-engage their hearing in like a millisecond to hear the echoes coming back. And they do this repeatedly. It's crazy. Anyway, so they're really loud, but we can't hear them because they're using high frequency sound, which is at a level that we can't hear. Now, some little kids can hear up to about 20 kilohertz, which is sort of the lower level of where bats are echolocating. So bats are echolocating between about 20 and 40 kilohertz, ranging up to about 100, some of the different bats with their different call elements. But basically 20 to 40, and we can't hear that. The problem with windows is that when a bat is approaching a really smooth surface like that, they call, and then their call bounces away from them. It doesn't bounce back to them. The way they navigate is the sound has to bounce back so they can hear it, so that they know there's something there. So if it bounces away from them, they don't get an echolocation call rebound, the echo. They don't think anything is here. So it looks like it's like, oh, clear sailing. Now, the only way that they could get an echo back from a smooth surface is if they echolocate directly at the surface, and then they might get something coming back at them. So that's the problem with windows. Now, there's a little YouTube video. You want to watch that? This little video? Okay. So I'll see if I can get this to work. Wait. Stop for a second. Okay. Where'd it go? Here.
echolocation skills. Most of the time. Unfortunately, they have a bit of a problem with smooth surfaces. Bats navigate in the dark by listening for the echoes of their own high-frequency calls. Objects with rough surfaces reflect sound waves in many different directions. But smooth surfaces can act as an acoustic mirror, reflecting most of the sound away from the incoming bat. Only when the bat is directly over this metal sheet can it detect a few reflected sound waves. The bats in this experiment often only realised the metal plate was there at the very last minute. None of these bats were injured. But in the wild, smooth glass on the outside of buildings can be an invisible menace for echolocating bats.
All right. I have to go back to the, oops. Okay, now I have, oh, I think you have to let me share again. Kathleen?
All right, I'm on it. Let's see.
There we go. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll go back to my thing. There we go. Okay, we're back.
Right on.
Yeah. So
how's everybody doing? Everybody doing well?
Everybody saw that? It all worked? Everybody could hear it? Excellent.
Right on. Looks good from my end. This is awesome. Thanks, Susan.
Okay. All right, we're almost there. Oh, now it's not.
And just so everybody knows, we do have a special guest. So just you hang on there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting there.
No, this is awesome. The special guest is also watching your presentation intently. I've been receiving texts. I have updates.
Okay, good.
Yep, all approved.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so the other big thing that we have to talk about is white nose syndrome. And I'm just about at the point where I'm going to hand off to Melanie. I'll just give a little background on white nose syndrome. So, yeah, bats have had a few challenges in the last few years. In 2006, we had a introduction of a fungus to North America. And it showed up in upper New York State, right around here, in a cave. And they found these bats with this white stuff growing on their faces, around their noses. So they called it white nose syndrome. And then they were finding piles of dead bats in hibernation sites where they knew there used to be like thousands of bats. And it took them a few years to figure out what it even was. And then they figured out what, they called it a certain species of fungus. And then a couple years later, they changed the name of it. And they've been tracking it ever since. Their estimate is several million bats, but that was a few years ago. So up until like this part of North America, like around here, there's lots of huge limestone caves that they know of where there's bats hibernating, that they knew how many bats were there. So they could get population estimates, the estimated mortality, the number of bats that were dying from this fungus. But as it's moved across North America, we don't really know as many hibernation sites. So we know bats are getting it and dying, but they're just guessing at the number of bats that have died from it by now. And so it's millions. It's probably closer to 10 million bats have died from this. In Canada, it's as far west as Riding Mountain National Park, but that's a little bit of an old data point. Saskatchewan hasn't had a huge surveillance program, and admittedly, in Alberta, we only really were sending in a few bats last year. So Alberta and Saskatchewan have not had a really rigorous surveillance program, but we have not found it in Alberta or Saskatchewan yet. The most recent spot was in Wyoming, and I think it was right around here. There was a cave complex. where they found some dead bats that had died from white nose syndrome. So that's really not far from Saskatchewan. Grasslands National Park is right here. And of course, southern Alberta here. Now, in 2016, we had a weird thing happen. So they thought it was going to take a while for the bats to make it across the continent. But they think some bats got in a transport truck or in somebody's camper. You have to check your camper now, like when you go camping. Check the awnings, check all the crevices before you leave to make sure you haven't got a bat roosting in your camper. And what they think is that a bat caught a ride from an infected area, drove across the continent and got off in Seattle. And then they found a bat with white nose syndrome near Seattle. And the following spring, they had bats with white nose syndrome, and it's moved now since 2016, one county north and one county south. And so it's heading towards the BC border. So they're kind of freaking out here. And they're doing quite active surveillance in southern British Columbia. Now, the other actually cool thing that we're doing, this is kind of a hopeful thing, is through Wildlife Conservation Society Canada. Our lead bat biologist is Dr. Corey Lawson, and she's working with Thompson River University in Kamloops, and they've been swabbing healthy bats, swabbing their wings, and growing, even healthy bats will have bacteria and fungi that grow on their wings. And what they've been doing is getting the natural fungus and bacteria that live on certain bats and growing it in the lab, and then seeing if it will outcompete or kill the introduced fungus. And they have had some success with that. So if a healthy bat is nice and fat through the winter and it has this healthy growth of natural fungus and bacteria on it, it might have a better chance of surviving a white nose syndrome infection. So they've been creating like a powder that's like a probiotic powder, and introducing it in maternity sites at the end of the season in this area in southern British Columbia. And they're going to be monitoring to see if they have a good survival rate of bats that have been inoculated with this stuff. And so that's kind of what we're hoping for. But I'll hand this over to Melanie now, because she can talk about the wildlife health aspect of this, about exactly what it does to bats and stuff. So Melanie, you can take it away.
Thanks, Susan. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, good. Yeah, so as Susan was saying, we're also doing some passive surveillance at Calgary Wildlife with the University of Saskatchewan, and we're just checking any bats that come in, any hibernating bats that we receive that are injured or grounded. We're lighting the wings to see if we can find any scarring that is potentially post-secondary, like post-infection for white nose syndrome. So that's one thing we're doing. It doesn't necessarily mean that we can confirm white nose would be in Alberta, but it's just one of those extra things that we can look at that indicate that particular bat might have spores. Knock on wood, we haven't found anything yet, so that's great. But what white nose does to the actual bat, so the fungus itself is not killing the bat. What the fungus is doing is it's irritating the skin of the bat, which wakes the bat up several times through hibernation, and essentially the bats end up dying from emaciation. So they're starving. So it burns off all their fat stores. Another thing that's been recommended too by Craig Willis from Winnipeg, Dr. Craig Willis, he's also a bat researcher, is that they have found that some bats that have gone into the hibernacula that are fairly fat and healthy have managed to survive the winter without dying from emaciation. So another option that is recommended too is that you need to maybe promote more wetlands and more insects for bats as well to eat. So yeah, I don't know if you want to go ahead to the next slide.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I don't know if I can access. Can I? No.
No, I think I have to.
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay.
Oh, and the other point is that it doesn't affect humans.
Oh, yes, that's true. It's not zoonotic, no.
Yeah, it's only for bats,
Yeah.
sadly.
So one of the things we're doing with Calgary Migratory Species Response is any bats that we're finding grounded during this survey, we have been collecting the ones that are on the ground just in case they are actually injured or they do need some care. So I'm just going to go over some bat handling and precautions with any time you find a bat. Typically, if it's like Susan was saying, if it's hanging out on the side of the building, it's probably just hanging out there, you know, in torpor, waiting for the weather to get better so it can continue to move on. If you do find something on the ground, soaking wet, so we found a couple bats last year, like in snowbanks on the ground that were quite wet and cold. So you know, we did make a call to bring those guys in and warm them up and overwinter them. So we just released them recently, so that's really great. They're back out there again. So anytime you go near a bat that you're going to handle, you want to make sure that you're wearing thick gloves. So the only studies I've been able to find for bats that we have within our native bat populations that will actually protect you from a bite is a deerskin glove that is thick enough that the tooth can't go through. So we recommend wearing deerskin gloves if you can get them, at least a thick gardening glove. And then because of the risk of COVID now, and the risk from COVID is not from the bat, and we'll get into that later. The risk is actually that we potentially could pass something on to the bat population. So, you know, that the jury's still out on that, but there have been regulations put in place by both the US government and the Canadian government when you're handling bats. So this is in the protocol now. So usually what we do is if we're going to be handling bats, we wear deerskin gloves and then we put a nitrile glove or latex glove over top of that glove. So we're not, you know, because you can't really disinfect the deerskin glove. So you always want to have thick leather gloves to protect you so you don't get bitten. Aside just from that too, there's the potential of a rabies risk. So the prevalence of rabies in wild bats is extremely low, but you always want to take the precaution because it is fatal. And if you do get contract rabies and you're unaware and you don't go get post-secondary treatment, it could be fatal. So we just want to take that seriously. So yeah, you want to put that on. And the other thing we're going to be adding to this protocol that we didn't do last year is the use of a mask. So you want to wear a mask. And again, this is a potential issue of passing COVID onto the bat. So that's just one extra precaution that we want to take when handling bats. Yeah.
Oh, and you might want to change the nitrile gloves between bats.
Yes. Oh yes, yeah. So after, yeah, exactly. You'd be using new nitrile gloves afterwards. Yeah.
And that's for white nose syndrome.
For white nose, well, for white nose syndrome, we actually have like even a more stricter policy with that. So there's actually a biosecurity disinfection, but this is in regards to if you're going to be doing a survey and you're picking up a bat on the ground outside, that these are just steps that you want to take when you're handling a bat outside. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, some of the other folks who are on the call who may not be aware, when we're talking about surveys, we've got the volunteer team and we do walk around the downtown and actually looking deliberately for birds and bats that have been affected. So just to translate that over for the folks who haven't been out on a survey with us, that's what we're mentioning there. But that's very true for even the public, right? When they find a bat, to be super careful and to call you guys first for directions, to make sure they actually need help first of all.
Exactly.
But then what to do to be safe, hey?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, like if there's a bat that's hanging out and you have time to give us a call, please do give us a call and then we can come and handle it. If it's in a situation where you think that bat's immediately going to get injured and you want to get it out of harm's way, collect it, then obviously you would follow the policy with wearing the gloves and nitrile gloves. So if you do collect a bat while you're surveying and you're transporting it, you want to put a bat in a container that obviously has oxygen, but doesn't have, you would never put them in a cardboard box because they can crawl through very, very small areas, as Susan probably knows. Yeah, very, very small areas. So we have little containers, little reptariums that we've actually put together for our surveys, specifically so bats can't get out. We've attached the soft-sided Velcro on the side of these containers so the bats can hang upside down in the container, because I always feel more comfortable when they're hanging upside down. But if you don't have something like that, then you can put a cloth or paper towel or something soft in the container so the bat can hang out on that. There's some protection so it's not bouncing around, and it has something to crawl under and hide under too to make it feel more comfortable. And you don't have to necessarily, like normally any other injured animal, you'd be putting them in a warm, quiet place. You still want to keep them in a very quiet, dark space to minimize the stress, but it doesn't have to be in a super warm place because they will, like Susan was talking, they can drop into a torpor. So yeah, so when you're transporting, you don't want to be bouncing the container around. You just want to think of the animal and try to minimize the stress as much as possible for that animal, and just keep it quiet and dark for them if you can. Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Susan?
Oh, I was going to say,
Yeah.
our general rule for, like, especially people who are trying to keep bats out of their buildings and stuff, is that if you can stick your pinky finger in the hole, bat can fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were sent a little note out to folks to, not sure if anybody ran around their house before to find a quarter or loonies
Oh,
or
yeah.
a playing card. Here's, why don't you explain that to give an idea of the size you're talking about?
For weights, yeah, I think Susan probably can cover the weights of the bats.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, Little Brown weighs about the same as a loonie coin. So
If you
7
guys have a
grams.
loony, you could, if the kids have a loony, you could hold the loony, and
That's how much. And that guy there's a big brown, so you need 2 loonies.
2 whole loony weights.
Yeah. And our little, like I said, the western small-footed myotis, the little blonde guy with the black wings that lives in the drumheller and the rivers, the river valleys. He's about the size of my thumb, and he weighs about 4 grams, which is about the weight of a quarter.
Quarter.
Yeah, they're tiny.
Mm,
That is tiny.
little guys.
I think Melanie will touch on toenail clippers.
Oh, yeah, we were just talking about last night, like about how big, how the size-wise would a big brown be, and I was like, about the size of toenail clippers. That's about the length of the body of a big brown bat.
Yeah, they look bigger. Like you said, they look bigger because they have this long tail.
Yeah.
But the end of their body is like right here.
Yeah.
So really just, the body is just this length.
Wow.
Exactly.
So if you guys went to the trouble to find your toenail clippers, it's the length of that little guy. And that little guy was from downtown Calgary, right? The little cold one on the top there, I think.
Yeah, that's what we named him, Leroy, because it was Leroy that brought him in. So yeah.
Okay, you want the next one?
Awesome.
Sure.
Oh, this is your Calgary wildlife stuff.
Yes, so yeah, this is pretty self-explanatory. I can go a little more into detail around some of the research we're doing with bats with some of these different centers and universities. So with the University of Saskatchewan and the Canadian Wildlife Health Center, they're doing various studies. So we're looking at prevalence of cat attacks on bats, because that happens quite frequently, unfortunately. So keeping your cat inside is always great. And the other thing we're looking at too is prevalence of rabies of bats that are coming into rehab centers. So the prevalence in the wild population is like less than 1%, but we're looking at what percentage of bats that are coming into rehab centers that are sick and showing symptoms are coming back. If they expire, we're not euthanizing bats or anything like that. But if a bat happens to expire in care, then we will send them off for testing. They're paying for all the testing for these bats. And we're just essentially marking behavior. So when a bat comes in, we look at how this bat is acting. We have a scorecard essentially that we just check things off. If the bat is biting, how long is it biting for, all that kind of stuff. And then if the bat does expire, we can have the bat tested, and they can use that data hopefully to try to determine if there's a higher prevalence of bats that are coming into rehab centers that are potentially rabid. So that's really great. And then the other thing I was talking about too is we're just looking at wing scarring. So when you light a bat's wing, if there is a potential that it had we call it post PD infection, but it will light yellow. The spores will light like a yellowish green color. And if it's just regular scarring, then it lights like a bluish purple color. So every time a bat that comes in, that would be a hibernating bat. We don't check out migratory bats for this. I mean, we probably could, but we usually just focus on the hibernating bats, and we will light their wings and just record what kind of scarring we're finding on the wings, etc. And parasites too. We're looking at parasites that bats have and collecting some of those as well. So if you do happen to find an injured bat or grounded bat, you can call us at Calgary Wildlife, and we will try to get somebody out there to collect the bat from you and determine whether it's actually injured, if it needs to come in, or if it can just be released later that day. And then of course, if it's a situation like we were talking about earlier, if it's a survey that you guys are doing, or you feel the bat needs to be rescued immediately, then we ask that you would follow those protocols. So yeah, not all bats can be released. Typically, if a bat can't be released and doesn't have a good quality of life, then we would make a call to either keep that bat as an education bat if they can still maintain a decent quality of life in captivity. And I do have a bat that I brought home with me this evening, but he was quite excited when I took him out earlier. So I'll check afterwards to see if he's calmed down a little bit, and then I can bring him out and he can make an appearance. But
you've got a real live bat there, Mel?
Yeah,
Is that our
yeah.
special guest?
Yes, yes. If he'll cooperate.
Okay, well, I'll keep our fingers crossed.
Sorry, yeah, fingers
we'll keep
crossed.
our fingers crossed.
Yeah. So we always check, how severe the injury is. Weight is really important for bats too, that we overwinter, because if they have these little wings that have to sustain their body weight. So we really try to keep the weight of the bat down. And if the bat is overweight at all, then a lot of times they'll have difficulty flying. So we have to condition the bat. And that's what our bat hospital, when we finally get it up and running, we'll have a flight area there for them. We can have them isolated from the rest of the hospital, and then we actually have a flight area where we can take these bats and fly them and exercise them and condition them before we release. And also when we release, we always want to release, that's our goal. And then when we do releases, we take the bat back from where the bat came from. So typically you want to release bats within 5 kilometers of where they came from. And we just, that's why it's really important for us to get the information of where the bat came from, and then we take it back to that spot when he's ready to go or she's ready to go, and we release them so they can meet back up with their colony, or they're familiar with that territory. Yes, and as we were saying, I have a education bat here, so I will try to get him out afterwards. And yeah, as Susan was saying too, sometimes it's really difficult to keep bats in captivity. Fruit bats are a little easier to care for, but the insectivore bats are a little tricky to keep healthy in captivity, just because of the diet and the perimeters they need of temperature, humidity, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but Echo's doing great so far. Yeah, you can go to the next one. So as we were talking before about COVID now, the issue isn't the fact that it came, and Susan, I'll let you speak a little more to this because I think you're familiar with this paper more than I am, but you know, the issue isn't that bats are going to pass COVID to us. There's just that possible concern that we could pass that on to them and then they pass it amongst themselves and it gets into the wild population. So that's where the protocols and the restrictions have come from, different governments, just to make sure that we're following those protocols to minimize the risk of that happening. But yeah, if you're okay speaking to this, Susan, I'll
Sure.
let you take it over. Yep.
Yeah, they haven't found it. They haven't found humans passing it to bats yet, and they're doing some experiments in the States to see if bats could actually contract it. And the concern was after those tigers in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Zoo got sick with COVID, and they found it in a few other species. So they were concerned that it could maybe go to bats. But yeah, so just to go over the whole COVID situation. Yeah, so bats, they had, initially they said that it came from bats. And then they actually did the genetic sequencing on the virus that they were finding in the bats. And it isn't the same as the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is the one that is responsible for COVID-19. The virus that the bats have is like a precursor. It's they figure that they had that bats. This virus maybe left bats 40 to 70 years ago and maybe moved to an intermediate host. So somehow it moved and it jumped species. The version that the bats have of the virus, you look at the, whoop, I did that. If you look at the, this is like a particle virus, and it has these little spiky things on the outside. That's why it's called a coronavirus, because it looks like a little crown. Now the formation of these receptors on this virus molecule, it's called a ACE receptor cell. And the ones in the virus that's in this bat is built so that it can't transfer to humans. Just the way the receptor is built, it's not communicable to humans. So you couldn't pick it up from a bat. And the genetic sequencing, when they compared it to the SARS-CoV-2 virus that's circulating, it was only 96% similar. Now, if you think about how similar we are as humans to, say, chimpanzees, it's like 95 to 96%. That's how close we are to chimpanzees. So that's not very similar at all, really. It's quite significantly different. Even a percentage difference is quite different. So then they kind of thought it was in pangolins for a while. That was the other theory. The version that is in the pangolin is only 99% similar to the SARS-CoV-2 virus that's circulating. And even 99% similar is still quite different. So they don't think it came directly from pangolins either. So 40 to 70 years ago, this virus may have been in a bat. And it may have moved, it could be that its history is that it's moved through a few different wildlife species. So that's what the biologists around the world, or China, they're searching for, they're searching through wildlife and typing different types of viruses, because every animal, including ourselves, we have our own sets of viruses that we have circulating in our bodies. And what's interesting with wildlife is, and well, especially with bats can have some really weird viruses, but they don't shed the virus unless they're stressed. So if you starve a bat, or if you handle a bat, or if you stress it out in some way, and it gets kind of underweight or feeling stressed and sick, then it will start shedding virus. But a healthy bat can have viruses that circulate within the bats that aren't shed when they're healthy and happy. So that's really the bottom line, is that humans have to stop encroaching on wildlife habitat, and catching animals like bats and keeping them in captivity in close proximity to other wild species, like in some of those markets that we were seeing on television, that stresses live animals out and they can shed virus, and that creates the problem. So if bats are left in their little homes, wherever they live, happy and healthy and not bothered, they're not a health risk, and you won't get that spillover of those viruses. But a lot of the virology literature is quite frightening, actually, because they have all sorts of predictions of different things different places where they see humans interacting with exotic wildlife in ways that could cause another spillover or of a different kind of virus. And it's not necessarily just bats. And there's been research that has shown that bats are not exceptional. It's not, it's because we have so many different kinds of bats and there's so many of them that they have typed them because it's easy to catch bats because they're colonial. But they're no more likely to be carrying a funny virus than any other animal in the world. Oh, there he is.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, this just in, our special guest has arrived.
There's Echo.
I wonder,
And Echo is
Susan.
not a hazard. His guano is not a hazard. The only
No.
problem is if some bats at a very low percentage can have the rabies virus in North America. So we don't handle bats. Biologists, we all have our pre-exposure rabies shots. And if you have had bearskin exposure with a bat, then you should go get your rabies shots. They're not a big deal, though. They're just little shots in the arm. Not a big deal.
Hey, Susan, I'm wondering, do you mind if we can stop sharing the screen for just 1 second, and we'll see if we can get Echo up on the big screen here, and the kids.
Can you make him
so patient.
Yeah, make him big.
Actually, Mel, if you talk, and if you can change your own view so that whoever's speaking is on your screen. So I'll be quiet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to do this with one hand, and he's a little calm right now, but
Wave a mealworm in front of his face.
yeah, I just had it. He's still kind of like stressed. Like I just woke him up, so he's like a little bit
Sleepy.
What's going on? Do you want your mealworms?
Oh, he is
He's
so
just
cute.
checking out the screen.
I'm gonna actually unmute everybody so that you guys can.
Oops, here he goes.
Nope.
Okay, bud.
Oh, actually, I think you all have to unmute yourselves if you'd like to squeal a delight or ask any. Would you like to ask Echo or Melanie questions since Echo is here to visit with us?
Do you have any questions?
No.
Is Echo going to respond if I ask a question? You don't touch.
Do you know what kind of bat Echo is?
What kind of a
Why don't you
bat?
ask Echo what kind of bat he is?
She forgets.
Yeah, he's
Don't
waking
touch.
up now.
What kind of bat? Oh, he's
And he can fly.
He can fly. He can fly a little bit. He just can't fly well enough to hunt. Yeah.
And so I should tell everybody too, so Melanie is a certified wildlife rehabilitator. That's the only reason she's allowed to have this bat right now. We can't have wild animals as pets. It's not allowed. But Echo is very special because Echo could go back to the wild, and Melanie did such a great job with her team to rehabilitate Echo that she was actually received special permission under her permits to keep Echo as an educational bat. So when you see that Echo is there with Melanie, that's very, very special. This does not normally happen.
Is he wiggly like that all the time?
Whoops, not all the time. It's just because he's usually like earlier in the day, he's much more docile, but it's because of the time of the evening. He's warm right now. Yeah, so he's waking up and he's just also kind of out of sorts because I'm just holding him up here by a screen and I don't think he's loving that. But yeah.
He's adorable.
He is. He really is adorable. Yeah, he's sweet. He's very quick.
Do you know how old Echo is?
He was an adult when we got him. So we've had him in captivity now for 2 years. Oh, hello. Oh, good. I
Yeah, we
thought
can hear
for the
you.
screen. Yeah, we've had him in captivity for 2 years.
Oh,
So,
we can
and when
hear
he
him.
came in, he was an adult. So we don't have an exact age on him, but we know he's at least 2. Yeah.
Is that him that we hear
Yes.
chattering?
That's
You guys
him.
hear
Yes.
that?
He's a little irritated right now. So there you go. You can see
Little
his
camera
face.
shy.
Yeah.
Oh, he's very cute. Even when you hold him a little ways away, you can still see him quite
You
well.
can still see. Okay.
You see how fast he is.
Melanie, could you tell us, like, I think one thing when we talk about bats, we think about, oh, listen to that. That's so neat. I think that when we talk about bats, and sometimes wild animals we don't know a lot about, it's difficult to think of them as an individual and their little personalities and how smart they are. And you were telling me the other day that you were in a meeting at the Rehabilitation Society and that Echo recognized you and started making quite the fuss. Could you tell the kids what, and everybody on the call,
Yeah. So he
what
has a
Echo was
little.
asking you for?
He has a little reptarium that he lives in. That's quite large, and we have a little mealworm dish or container where we keep all of his mealworms for him. And as soon as he heard our voice, he like came running down and started chattering because he wanted his mealworms, and he went right to the container that's outside to get his mealworms. So yeah, he definitely recognizes his food source and knows where it is, and when he hears our voices that he comes down and, lets us know that he wants some food. So yeah, they're very intelligent animals, actually.
That is really neat. Oh, look at the little face.
Yeah.
Well, they have all the elements of being, they're a social animal. They live in colonies. They have long lives. They're smart.
They're very smart.
Susan, can I ask a question about so you mentioned that one bat that was 40 years old. Is that typical, or is it known how long bats lived? Are most of them that long lived?
We don't have a huge number of longevity records for bats. There is one older from England. They had a ringed bat that was 42. So, but generally the estimates for ages on these little insectivorous bats that we have are 10, 15, 20, and then some as long as 40. Well, I think 40 is probably getting to the upper limit. I caught, when I had my colonies in Medicine Hat, I found a ringed bat, and she was 19. It was a big brown. And that was the oldest record for a big brown that we had at the time. I still think it might be the oldest for the province.
That's
and
cool.
it was interesting because her canine teeth were completely worn down. They're almost like flat. So, but they eat really hard insects like beetles and stuff. So they maybe wear their teeth down over time. So that might be the limit for maybe big browns don't live as long as little browns, but they eat softer food. So
that's amazing when you consider the size of bats that they can live so long.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, they have to because they only have that one pup a year. Right. And the thing is that the survival rate of pups is only about 50% over their first winter.
Wow.
So one pup a year and only half make it through their first winter.
So how many nipples does a bat have? You were talking about that one bat that has 4 babies a year. So I was thinking, does she have 4? Like, are they like dogs where they have several nipples, or are they more like elephants who only have 2?
So the myotis only have 2. So they're in their armpit underneath their wing where they can tuck the baby underneath. And the laziurans, which is the hoary and the silver-haired bat, or the hoary and the red bat. Actually, silver-haired bats might have, I don't know how many silver-haired bats have. I know the hoary and the red bat have 4 though. So they can support more than, well, that's with the 4 babies, the red bats can support 4.
And is it true across all species of bats that the males have play no role in raising the babies?
No. Most, probably I would say out of the 1,411 species that are on the planet, probably 1,410 of them, as far as we know, The males don't have anything to do with them. But there is one species in Borneo, the Dayak's fruit bat. They caught the males and the females, and oh, look, he's eating.
Yeah.
The males were lactating. They had lactating.
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah, it was.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was crazy. And these bats live really high in the canopy of the jungle canopy, so they don't know a lot about their social structure or their reproductive biology. They just had been netting, and they had their harp traps really high in the canopy, so they caught these bats. It was unusual. And yeah, it was funny. The guy who presented it at the bat conference, he goes, "Yeah, we caught some females." He was talking about all these neat bats he caught. He caught this one and that one. We caught females of this one, they were lactating, and we caught males of the same species, they were lactating. And then he went on to like the next one that he caught, and everybody went, "Wait a minute."
Oh, wow.
What? So yeah, they've done a bit of work on it, and they don't know whether it's related to diet, or they think these guys are actually feeding the pups. So,
Wow.
but
Cool.
but generally the
Melanie,
males
what's
don't
eating?
really have anything to do with it.
And do they live together? So the mums and babies live together, but
Mhm.
typically the male bats just do their thing.
Yeah, well, so because they can use torpor, the males have a different energy budget during the summer. So males and non-reproductive females can roost by themselves in cooler roosts to save energy, and they use torpor regularly. And the females with their pups are picking hot roosts, like in attics of buildings or in hot bat boxes, where they can minimize the amount of energy that they have to expend keeping the babies warm and maximizing growth rates. So that's why the females are picking hot spots and the males are picking cooler spots.
And this is my last question. I'm sorry, I'm dominating all your time.
That's okay.
At how old are they when they become able to reproduce?
That's a good question. So in the fall, that's when they mate, is in the fall. So just before they go into hibernation, and everybody mates. Like even if they don't want to, everybody mates, because the males go into hibernation after the females, and they kind of mate with everybody in a hibernation site. So all the females coming out would be capable of having pups the following spring. They actually store the sperm over winter, and they ovulate in the spring, and that's when fertilization occurs. So if a young female comes out of hibernation at a low weight and can't support a pregnancy, she'll resorb the embryo and not have a pregnancy. So if she's fat enough, a first-year female could have babies, but I think most probably don't. They probably don't reproduce till there's 2 or 3.
Thank you.
No problem. Good question.
And your questions are always awesome. You're not dominating anything. You're awesome. Those are really neat. Thanks, Susan. I'm dying to know what Echo's eating.
Mealworms.
His favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, and I should say that male bats and female bats are easy to tell apart.
How do you tell them apart?
Males are very
obviously.
obviously male.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that. Yeah, they're one of the easiest mammals to determine gender or sex.
Good to know.
I didn't put that on the quiz.
No?
I'll have to remember that next time.
I was going to make a joke about well hung, but I won't.
Oh, well, you could. You
Well,
could
you
actually.
could, yeah.
But we wouldn't.
We're filtering for the audience.
That's right. Aw, that is so awesome. I know that the little ones, I noticed they're going to probably go to bed soon. Did you guys have any last minute questions for Echo before we go on the rest of the PowerPoint presentation? We had just a couple more slides. I think we're just a couple little things and then questions.
I think Anna just had a little question for Mel, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, what did you ask? So we know Echo was rescued, but Anna wanted to know where Mel got him from.
So he came from, somebody brought him to us. He had a broken wing, And so he came from Alberta. He just came from north of Calgary, and he came in with a broken wing. So we had a veterinarian that did a surgery on his wing. You can, whoops, you can kind of see. And so where he had the surgery, where they tried to reconnect the bone, unfortunately it didn't heal as well as they had hoped. So he has scar tissue there now, and that interferes with him being able to do full flight, where he can actually fly and catch insects. So that's the issue why he can't be released right now. But other than that, I mean, it's just scar tissue. The vet says he doesn't, he seems to be in good spirits. He's obviously very full of energy. He adapted pretty well to captivity. He eats mealworms and everything else we give him. We give him some crickets sometimes, also fruit flies, to try to mix up his diet a little bit. Yeah, so we just, this year, because we had him and we were deciding what to do, if we should try to keep trying with his care, and then the province finally gave us a permit to keep him, to use him as an education animal. So
He's
yeah,
pretty cute. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
I'm really glad that you guys came. I know that you might have to tuck off to bed, but
I think so.
very patient.
Yeah.
I noticed you're really paying attention. Well done. Before you go to bed, did you guys do the quiz?
I didn't see the quiz.
I'm gonna put
No? Okay. Okay,
So
then you're not
no.
waiting for the answers, because we'll probably give the answers at the end. So I
So
can tell your mom if you, yeah, that's
how's
awesome.
that? We can do a quiz later, and we'll do your coloring sheets. So we'll thank everyone. We'll thank Susan and Mel for presenting such a great thing, right?
Yeah, you can stay as long as you want. I just wanted to make sure you got to see the bats before you go to her bat before you went to sleep. So
Can you say thank you?
Thank you.
You're totally welcome.
you're welcome, sweetie.
You're welcome. I was just putting him to bed too.
Oh, it's nighttime
You
for
like
him.
bats now?
Yeah, you're gonna go to bed with the bats.
There you go.
Hey,
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you. Wow, that was exciting to have Echo. And I guess now that Echo is in, I guess, Susan, you were mentioning how there's so much more like bears than mice. And it just gives such a different perception of them.
Well, that's what I always try to get people to think of them not as mice, because like in a couple different languages, bats are actually, the name for bat is like in German, it's called a Fledermausen, which means a flying mouse. And in French, they're called a chauve-souris, which means a shaved mouse. And a lot of people think of them as flying mice, but you know now, like their life history is nothing like mice. They're more like little tiny flying grizzly bears, because they live a long time and they only have a single pup a year, and they have a slow rate of reproduction, just like a large mammal, like a bear. So they're this outlier in the mammals. They don't follow the regular pattern. So
that's so neat. Can I just ask, while Mel's getting ready there, we were outside on the street and chatting, and actually I saw a bat fly last night in our neighborhood. We were down in Southeast Calgary. And so what, in our neighborhoods in Calgary, I know you went through the different bats that you saw in the slides, but what would be a typical one we might see in our neighborhood, do you think? Could it be any of them?
little browns, little brown
Little
bats.
brown bat?
Yeah.
Sweet.
And if you've got lots of forest around, you could have those long-eared myotis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure. And maybe long-leggeds. But and big browns are around too. So the little browns and the big browns are the ones that are going to take advantage of buildings and stuff like that. There's quite a few buildings in Calgary that have bats in them.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Like, if you're in a typical neighborhood, like we're in an older 1960s bungalow type of neighborhood, and then you've got apartment blocks and things like that. But if you're, I guess, yeah, it depends upon your neighborhood as to what types of bats might be there. And then I'm curious about where they might sleep at night. If there's not a lot of bat houses around, where would they be normally sleeping in a typical neighborhood?
Well, if there's old trees, big old trees, they like to be under the bark or in cavities. So if there's like a crack, like a frost crack, or a old woodpecker hole, not one that's got woodpeckers in it, but one without woodpeckers, or any kind of cavity in a tree, that's where they would naturally roost. The big browns and the little browns, they will also though sneak into buildings. So anywhere there's a little crack or crevice, like into an attic space, or at the top of the eaves of a where the house, the top of the point of a house, sometimes get little tiny crevices where the wood separates from the roof. And like I said, if you can stick your pinky finger in there, a bat can go in. It's amazing. I'm always amazed at what they've actually shoved themselves through. And if they get it's usually like the south facing side of a house where it's nice and warm, and they'll be tucked in there. They're just looking for a place out of the way.
And I think sometimes we're very quick to cut down old trees and old wood and to clean in our yards. And I guess that's a good reminder that maybe an old stump or something like that, that if you're able to leave it alone, you never know, it might be using it for shelter or something, hey?
Yeah, like even if you have a tree that is starting to get old and you're worried about it, if you can leave, well, if you have a property big enough and you don't mind leaving a big stump, if you can leave something that's like 3 meters high, like a 10-foot high stump, like a big tall one, those can still get used by bats and woodpeckers and different kinds of birds too. So yeah, the one way of kind of keeping them on the landscape a bit longer.
Oh, very cool. All right. Yeah, I was over that. Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you get a bat house and you put it up somewhere, do the bats just like find it, like fly by and see the bat house and think, ooh, let's get this new house? Or do you have to kind of lure them there somehow?
There's no luring. We haven't figured out a lure for any of them. But if you think about little brown bats, there's some of the tree roosting bat species that we know. They actually, the colony, say you might have a colony of 20 bats. They will have like 3 main trees in a forest where they roost, and they may move around those 3 different trees. But aside from those 3 main roosts, they can have up to 20 different trees that they're, a couple of bats will go roost in one night, and there's the 17 are in the main roost, or they'll just keep circulating around these 20 different roosts, checking out different spots. So because trees fall down, it's not a permanent roost, so they have to have a plan B all the time. So I think like these little guys, like these little browns, are always checking out. Like they go hunting, I think they get their bellies full, and then I think they do a little check about the neighborhood to see what's out there for roosting if their main roost is not working. And I think we're kind of where bird houses were maybe 50 years ago, where birds must not have known what bird houses were when we first put them up, but they figured it out. So I think as we have more bat houses on the landscape, that bats will actually start recognizing them as habitat and use them more. That's just my personal belief on how bats behave, because they are smart and they do get a mental map. And I think they do. I think people put up bat houses and they think they don't get bats because they don't get a huge colony. I've been telling people to take, if they have a bat house, is to pin some plastic on the ground underneath the bat house and just check it periodically to see if there's any guano, because you could have 1 or 2 bats that just roost overnight. They might leave a bit of poop, but if it goes into the grass, you'd never see it. So you wouldn't know that there was bats there because they don't build nests. So there's no evidence that they've been there other than if they've pooped a little bit. So if you can keep track to see if you've had a visitor, and they could be just scouting, right? I think they're scouting all the time. So yeah, it's a good question. We don't really know.
And is there a place to put a bat house? Like if you're putting it on a certain side of a house, or can you put it on a house? Do you have to put it on a post or?
Actually, we find on a house or building works best because the mass of the building actually transfers heat to the bat box. So overnight, it keeps the bat house warm. And like I said, the babies get left behind when mom goes out to hunt. So it keeps the babies warmer over the night, and it keeps them growing faster. So that's ideal for them. They like it on a building. So south facing or southwest facing gets lots of heat, so they like that. East facing can work too because it gets the morning sun, so it warms it up in the morning. We're in the middle of, between BC and Alberta, we're in the middle of doing a bat house study because we're checking internal temperatures of bat houses and what directions we're facing them and different designs. just to figure out what is the best design for bats and what they use. One of the recommendations we kind of make now is if you're going to put up bat houses, put up a couple and put them within 100 meters of each other, because you could put one in a really hot spot. But mid-July in Alberta, a black bat box facing south might get really hot, like over 40 degrees Celsius, which could get too hot for baby bats. But then if you had a bat house around the corner on the same building that was facing a slightly different directions, a bit cooler, they could maybe move over there. But they can't move very far because those baby bats are huge, right? So they can't fly far with the baby, but they can move them a little bit, but they can't move them far. So
there's a question on the chat here for you, Susan and Mel. We have a number of bird houses in our yard. Would it matter if we were to put up or to add a bat house to the town? So
no,
would it,
no.
yeah, does that affect it?
No, I don't think so. The only thing you don't want to attract is if you had a perch for like a late hunting raptor.
So don't mix your raptors with your bats.
No, because
noted.
Like owls and some of the falcons, the late hunting falcons would take a bat for sure. So, but
wow,
none of the other birds, the birds and the bats don't care. I heard of there was bats that were roosting in a cliff swallow nest with cliff swallows.
Well, could there be a situation where they find safety? If they see a bird there, that it may be a safer place because the birds are safe there. A bat maybe not safe there.
I think the birds would have to be pretty tolerant too. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it might be a little unusual. It's kind of a Stella Luna situation.
That is fantastic. Mel, did you get Echo all tucked in for bed? Did he behave or did he complain about bedtime or did he ask for another story?
Sorry, I muted because my dog was barking. Yeah, no, he was quite happy to go to bed. He just ran into his little pouch, actually, that we had made, the volunteers made. Yeah, I have a little velvet pouch there that the Calgary Migratory volunteers made for us, the quilters group.
Yeah, there's some folks that they answered the call out on Facebook, and they suddenly, it was one question, and by Tuesday, we asked on Sunday, by Tuesday we had our first one sewn. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And they were super cute in it.
And now we have a Rubbermaid container full of bat cozies, so it's amazing.
Aww.
Yep.
Oh,
he likes
so
it.
Good.
Did you want to go back to the thing?
Yeah, I was right, because we have a few more slides, and for sure, that's awesome. Thank you, Susan. Susan's great in control there. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank God for that.
I have one more question, if you have a second.
Yeah, questions are awesome.
I was wondering about the bat guano and whether it's dangerous to dogs, like if the dogs are out in the yard and they have access to it. If they were to eat it or be around it, is there any chance of contracting rabies or?
No, they say that you can't get rabies from bat poop.
Okay.
So that's not an issue. I
don't know about histoplasmosis.
Nah.
Or that's in a contained area.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it, but then dogs eat rabbit poop too, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I
don't
think
it's probably worse. Yeah.
Personally, I wouldn't eat bat poop, but
and they're so.
Yeah.
But dogs, yeah. No, I don't think there'd be an issue.
Okay, thanks.
I wouldn't worry. Oh, do you want me to talk then? About this one? I guess I'll...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead. If you don't mind.
Yeah, so we added a couple more slides here at the end. Just to give you some information on the value of bats. And there's a number of people across North America right now that are kind of moving in this direction of trying to focus on agriculture and to demonstrate just the importance of these bats. Because they eat a lot of insects. Like I said, a female at the maximum when she's nursing a pup that's learning to fly is eating more than her weight in insects. They calculated in the States the value of bats to agriculture range from 3.7 to 53 billion a year. The average was 22.9. In Ontario, based on the amount of square kilometers of agricultural land, their estimate was 15 billion a year, just from bats eating insects. So it's huge. And this number isn't even calculating
Amazing.
for bats that are eating forest insects, forest pests. So it's huge. They eat literally tons of insects every year. And we're completely oblivious because they're doing it at night while we're in bed, right? So nobody thinks about that.
Ah.
And then we have like the fruit eating bats and the nectar feeding bats. Like we like tropical fruits. Well, there's a bunch of plants and trees around the planet that depend on bats to pollinate them. This little guy at the top, he's actually a New World fruit bat, a Jamaican fruit bat. You can find him in South America and the Caribbean, and he eats fruits. And the one thing about the fruit eating bats is a lot of them ingest the seeds. And it's not like birds, they don't sit in the tree and eat and then poop the seeds out right where the tree is. They eat and then they fly away, and they poop everywhere, which is great because they're pooping seeds everywhere. So when you have a big fire and there's no trees there anymore, these bats are splatting seeds everywhere with their poop. And then you get new trees growing and germinating on the ground. So they're really important. They actually call them the night gardeners because they're flying around at night planting seeds. Yeah. And then you have these guys at the bottom on their little, rolled up in their little burritos, are the flying foxes from Australia. And a lot of them are actually really important as pollinators as well. And they also are important as seed dispersers. So these animals that are working the night shift while we're asleep are, they have some pretty critical roles in our global ecosystems. Yeah, so if you like bananas, and there's a fruit called the durian that's dependent on bats. If you like tequila, there's a nectar feeding bat that pollinates the agave plant that they use when they're making tequila. And you have to be a bat fan. There's some really good stories and interesting stuff about bats and tequila too. So you can actually get bat-friendly tequila now.
Yeah.
There's the agave farmers have taken on some bat-friendly agave growing techniques. They leave some stuff for the bats, and now they have a little stamp on their tequila that says bat-friendly tequila, which is pretty cool. So 3 things that you can do to help bats. The biggest one is to educate and advocate, especially in this time of COVID-19 when everybody thinks that that it started from eating bat soup, which it didn't. That's not where it came from. But there's still people out there who believe that. And there's been repercussions around the world. There's been places in Peru, there was a town where they burnt a bat colony because they were afraid they were going to get COVID from it. These were like insect eating bats. They weren't anything to do with COVID-19. People were just afraid. So education and advocating those are really powerful tools for helping out bats. Things that you could do yourself locally is you can eliminate hazards for bats. And there's lots of little things that we can do that help bats that we don't think about. It's like when you hang up sticky tape, like the fly tape, sometimes little birds and little bats can get stuck on that stuff. And then they end up at Melanie's place because they find this bat all covered in glue. And then they have to go to the wildlife rehab center to get fixed. And cats, if you keep your cats in, especially as the sun's setting and at night, that's really important because it helps keep our bats safe. Because, like I said, we can't hear bats calling, and they're really, really loud. But cats and dogs can hear bats. So if there's a colony nearby, your cat's going to smell it, and your cat's going to hear it. And when bats are exiting the colony, that's when they're most vulnerable. And that's all the moms with their babies. So if you got a bat or a cat that figures out where there's a bat colony, you can keep going back. And it's great fun for a cat to hunt bats because it's like cool. Like they like it.
They swoop down when the bat houses, you said you have to perch them up high.
Yeah.
Because if you put them too close to the ground, because they need to take the gravity towards the ground and then get air to go up, right? So if you put your bat house too low,
usually a bat house is
flat on
about
the
3 meters high at the bottom. And then that gives it room for the bats to swoop out to the bottom and fly off. So that's why there's a height thing for them. But I've seen them lower. I've seen bats flying from lower than that, but it's just a good practice to put them a little bit as high as you can. Yeah, 3 meters or higher. So they don't mind if it's much, much higher too.
So I received a private question on chat, and now that Echo's gone to bed, I don't think we'll embarrass him, but I do have a question here about what does bat poop look like?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, that's one of those things, those little facts that you can take and put in your pocket. Yeah. You go home.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know what bat poop looks like. It depends on the bat species. So little browns have little bat poop and big browns have bigger bat poop. If you think about a grain of rice, little browns have bat poop that's about the size of a grain of rice, maybe a little bit bigger. And big browns are about twice as fat and a little bit longer. And you can tell it from mouse poop because mouse poop looks very similar to bat poop. It has little black, little long rice-looking things. But if you picked up mouse poop, wash your hands if you pick up mouse poop because that stuff's dangerous. But if you pick up mouse poop and you crush it between your fingers, it's like clay because they're eating seeds and grasses, and it's very solid. If you pick up bat poop and crush it between your fingers, because they're eating insects, the outside of insects, if you've ever stepped on a dried up bug, it's all that hard exoskeleton bits. And bats can't digest the hard bits, but they still end up crunching them up into little bits and swallowing them. So if you crush the bat poop between your fingers, it'll be all those hard little bits of exoskeleton that have been crushed and chewed into bits by the bat's little sharp teeth. So it'll crush into like a powder. And a fun fact is if they've been eating moths, lots of moths have shiny, pretty scales on their wings and on their body. And they can't digest those either. So they'll come out with the poop. So if they've been eating moths, bats can have sparkly poop.
Sparkly poop.
Sparkly poop. Not everybody.
And you know what I realized is on our survey, we found a bat with bat poop, and I will send that through to you in Messenger.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so we can actually, part of our program is when you have a bat roost, we actually ask you to send us some bat poop because we can send it away to a lab and they can get DNA from the bat poop and they can tell what species from feces. So they can tell you if you got little browns or big browns, or if you had lucky and you got some long-legged myotis. We could tell you from the bat poop you sent us, which is kind of cool. So the last thing you can do to help bats is just create an environment in your backyard that's good for bats. So don't use pesticides. Plant some native plants because that'll support native insects. And there's different types of plants you can do that. It's like gardening for bats. It's basically gardening for moths because bats are all about food, right? So if you can attract moths or feed moths with late flowering plants, that's good for bats. And the other thing you can do is to keep your backyard dark. So if you have lights, put them on like motion sensors so they go off most of the time. So you might need a light some of the time, but you don't need a light all night. But keeping the nighttime dark is important for bats. Yeah. So those are things.
I'm curious, Melanie, what do you, when you see, no, that's awesome. Because when you talk about those risks, I was thinking like, Melanie, what do you find like when you have bats come into you? What's the biggest thing you see when animals are coming in, like bats are coming in, what's happening to them before you get them?
Well, with bats specifically, a lot of them we get that are just actually in torpor. People find them on the ground in torpor. So they're, there's really not a whole lot going on with them. Second to that, we do get a lot of bats actually that get caught in sticky traps. And yeah, that's really, it's a big job. So a lot of people think you can just come and rip the tape off or whatever, and it's quite a process to get the glue off. So you actually have to use oil to get the glue off of the wings, and it takes quite a bit of time to do that. And you have to remember too, the wings are a skin membrane, so that gets really irritated easily. So we have to use oil to get all the glue off, be very careful with that. Then we have to bathe them to get the oil off. And it's a lot of stress, and it's just, yeah, it's an awful experience for them. So I would say that's probably the second thing that we do when we do see them. They come in covered because somebody found them in a like a fly trap that they hung up.
Well, one of the things that we recommend to agriculture is if they do those sticky traps, is to put them in a cage.
Yeah.
So that the bugs can get to the sticky trap, but the birds and the bats can't. So they have no access to it.
Yeah.
And that would keep the bats safe and the birds safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to watch reptiles too, because snakes,
Yeah.
lizards, anything tiny like that can get on them. They're awful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Wow. I'm still looking for the picture. I'm having technical difficulties. I have the picture, but I am going to get it through the messenger. I'm learning.
So if you guys are
back.
If you guys are looking for more information, on our Alberta Bats website, we have these 3 guidebooks that we've developed. The one is for managing bats in buildings. The one is for if you're building a bat house, where to install it, how to install it, and there's free bat house plans. And then the last one is the Bat Friendly Communities Guidebook, and it talks about, gives information on all of our bat species, like a little profile. And then it talks about hazards for bats. It has a little section on gardening for bats. If you wanted to put out a water source, how big you would need to put out, like what size ponds they would use. All the things that bats need, and things that you could find in your community and how you might improve them for bats. So yeah, those are all free downloads.
Wow.
And then we just have our thank yous. So this is
This is from Calgary Wildlife. We'd like to thank our donors, of course, but mostly our volunteers, because we have so many volunteers associated with our center, and we just couldn't do what we do without having volunteers. So I know some of you are here, so thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Definitely. Here.
And those are, so our community bat program is a nonprofit, and we apply for grants every year. And these are just some of the foundations that have supported us and help us do the outreach and education and the social media and the research and the bat house program and the roost counting and all that kind of stuff. So we're quite grateful of that. And then there you go, Kathleen.
Yeah. And you know what? I clicked so.
Oh, the Wild Bird Store. Is that one of you guys? Yeah, I've done talks for them too.
Yeah, and I literally can't see the presentation right now because I am clicking far too much.
Oh, really?
Hey, I found it. Oh, I still don't have the picture for you. I'm like 3 seconds away from finding the picture for you, but we are in partnership with St. Mary's University and with Calgary Wildlife Rehabilitation Society, which is, both of them are so supportive to us. We couldn't do what we do without them. So thank you to everybody here who's got any connection whatsoever with these organizations. Flap in Toronto, who started this whole thing about birds striking glass, that whole movement, which is massive around the world now, they started this I think it was 21 or 22 years ago. Yeah. And Safe Wings Ottawa, so both of those organizations inspired us to start last year. And we have so many people in the city and so many organizations, individuals. I couldn't possibly get them all on this slide, but the camera store has been supportive. The Wild Bird Store has been super supportive with, during fall, they gave us a few gifts to give prizes away to our volunteers for getting up at 5 in the morning. We had little draws for people signing up for shifts. And this spring, actually, they were gonna help us by being kind of a junction where volunteers could drop off all of their data sheets and also drop off any birds that had passed away, because we do keep them for scientific study at St. Mary's University, and all kinds of things. And there's so many other folks who I just, there's so many, it's unbelievable. And our volunteers are incredible. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
And
yes. I think, oh,
Oh,
So
thank
I
you.
really want to thank you, Susan and Mel, and I have a little something for you that I'll tell you about after our program here. It's just something little, but I want to acknowledge all, both of you. It's a little bit difficult to get you a gift physically, so I'm just going to make a contribution to an organization which is meaningful to each of you in terms of conservation of bats, retrieving of bats. So I'll talk to you after about where you would like that to be directed. It's little, but something at least to help. If anybody on the call watching today, this is our gift to you, and we're really grateful to you to be here today and listening and learning, and because every little tiny thing we learn might mean something we might do in our day-to-day life that may help a bat or help a bird, and it doesn't take a lot to help, like picking up a little bit of garbage or keeping that one stump up in the corner of the yard, or a little bit of extra grass, or a bush that moths might grow on that your bats will eat at night. Whatever you happen to do to help, we're very, very grateful for that. So don't take for granted all the good that each of you can do. So you can reach us. We've got a few things up on the slide there where you can reach us. And we really hope, so today's our first time doing this. We really hope you'll come back next week and invite a few more friends. And we're actually very, very excited. We have a few really neat guests coming up. It's hard to believe that we could find anybody any cooler than Susan and Mel and Echo. So they're big, big shoes to fill, you guys. So I don't know how everybody can do applause on here, but thank you so much to the both of you and to Echo.
Thank you.
And I'll just tell you, see if I can just get back to my list here.
Did you want me to stop
So,
the share?
I think you've got one more slide at the end.
Oh yeah, sorry, I did.
That's okay.
Okay.
So next Wednesday when we all get together again, I do hope you'll come. Please send me feedback. This is our first time. I'm just learning all this stuff, and let us know what your favorite parts were, or what you'd like to see more of, because we want to hear that. It's for you guys. But we're really, really excited to actually invite Paul from Feather Friendly is going to come and speak to us next week. So Paul Grollo is the vice president of that company, and at first it sounds like, oh, he's the vice president in a company, which is super cool. But when you speak with Paul, he is incredibly knowledgeable of the history of why we see bird strikes with the buildings and with glass. And what their company is doing is they've actually created a couple of products. One is for residential that all of us could put on our homes very easily. I actually just ordered a kit from the Wild Bird store, or you can buy it online from them. I think it's $15.99 online, or yeah, it's just I think $19 in the store here. And it's a very simple, there's lots of video demos as to how to put on your windows to help prevent the bird strikes, but Paul is going to tell us all about that. And he's actually had some incredible, he personally, but the company's had some really neat projects around the world, even in South Korea. And yeah, so he's going to come and share that information with us a week from now. And so we also, then the week after that, we have Gavin. I think most of you, or some of you with our group have met Gavin McKinnon. He's a young fellow who's a very, very talented birder and a great teacher. So he's going to come and speak with us about birds. And I think he may touch on recognizing bird song, or there's a number of different things he might speak on. We're really excited also to welcome Brian Keating of Going Wild. I've only been a fan for my entire life. So that's like, this whole thing is like Christmas. Each of these folks are so neat, including tonight. And this morning I confirmed that Paloma Plant and Michael Mazur of Flap Canada are going to come and give us a Wildlife Wednesday night as well. So they are the ones that brought all of this to the world in terms of bird strikes, window strikes, and so on. So between Brian, Paloma, Michael, Gavin, Paul, Susan, and Mel, Wednesdays are never going to be the same. So I think that this is very exciting. So if you have any questions, or if you have other things you'd like to learn about and see and do, please send us a note. And yeah, as I was saying earlier, it's our gift to you. But yeah, just be mindful of what we each do to help out around the neighborhood. And if now I'd like to open it up for questions, though, if Susan and Mel have a few more minutes. And
Sure.
yeah, if you guys have any more questions or anything else you'd like to add.
Sorry, I was just responding to the owl request because I agree. I think that would be cool too if we could get somebody to come on and talk about owls.
Oh, okay.
In the chat. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. Did you have anything, Susan?
No, other than if you all want to head over to our Facebook page and hit the like button, that would be good too.
Yeah.
Because people don't know, but now when you're applying for grant money, they ask you to report your social media following. So when you hit like or follow on our page, it increases our numbers and it helps us when we're applying for grants. It just shows that there's interest, and it actually carries some weight. So simple thing.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll add there too, if anybody is in the position to help financially, I know that Calgary Wildlife is having a large intake of spring animals right now. And I think that also, Susan, you had mentioned an organization who's also helping with conservation of bats. But Mel, maybe could you just touch on the kinds of things that you guys need right now, just in case anybody's interested in assisting? Because somebody sponsored a robin for me, which I was super stoked about.
Yeah. So we're actually going to have our baby shower. It's going to start June 1st. And this year, typically we would have it on site somewhere for one day and people would come and donate to us. But this year, everything's going to be online because of COVID. So if you're so inclined and you have some money, we have an Amazon wish list and you can just check that out on our website and see what we need and just you know, if you're able to give, that's fantastic. We're also probably going to be recruiting more volunteers as well, just so you're aware. And yeah, just getting some extra help on the ground. It's been actually busier this year than it was last year. So, and probably due to COVID with people just being at home and seeing more. So we are already over 500 animals. Yeah.
Wow.
and we're just kind of going into the busy season. So I have a feeling the summer is going to be pretty crazy.
Holy cow, you've already got a volunteer.
Yes, that's great.
Got a good one.
Well, yes, I was looking at you. You probably couldn't see that I was looking at you, but yeah, that's great. If you want to get in contact with me, yeah, we'll set something up. So
you know what? I wonder, not to put you on the spot, just take this away with you, that maybe we could set up a joint volunteer orientation just to make it really easy if any of our folks want to cross over, because they certainly are complementary to one another. Because if we get a call for animal rescue, things like that, we can't really do that, but we can under your permit if we're your volunteer.
Yes,
so that
exactly.
they're very complementary. So just a little idea.
Yeah, anybody that is interested, just get in touch and we'll set it up.
Sweet. Susan, you mentioned a really interesting conservation, it was in the UK, I think. Bat Conservatory or?
Oh, there's a few organizations that out there that do bat work that have great resources online. The Bat Conservation Trust in the UK. Those people are crazy. Like the Brits are amazing. Like they have like a moth conservation society and their bat conservation society is like a whole thing. Like but mainly because they have legislation there that protects bats in buildings. So you can't, if you have a bat colony in your house or in your attic, you have to get a permit if you want to do any renovations. So they have to have people who can assess your roost and make sure, because all their bats are endangered because they've manipulated their habitat so much that all their species are endangered. So any of the building roosts have to be managed, and there's legislation protecting them, which we don't have here. But
Wow.
Yeah, they have great resources though.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I guess my only wish would be is if you know anybody that has bat houses or a bat roost, if they would like to go to our website and join us with our citizen science project. It's the beginning of June is the start of the early counting season. And we ask people to report their bat houses or their roosts. And there's a protocol for counting your bats. You sit outside in a lawn chair at sunset and count how many bats come out, and then you report to us your numbers. And even if you have no bats, that's something we're tracking too, because we want to see what bat houses in what situations have bats and what ones don't, right? So that's important information as well. So we're just trying to recruit more people into that citizen science program. It's like the backyard bird count for bats, basically.
Yeah.
And that backyard bird count has provided incredible data for wildlife managers across North America, basically, because it's given people really good baseline population data on different species that don't get any attention. There's only so much money that your provincial fish and wildlife people have to look at different species, and the citizen science stuff is actually pretty powerful when you get enough people behind it and participating. So
very true. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Well, we'll definitely share your post on that too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Wonderful. Wow.
I'll be posting a few more of those because as we're approaching June 1st, so
yeah,
time to remind people to fill in their bat data forms.
Aw, that is so great.
Yeah.
Well, unless anybody has any last questions or wants to hang out, I was just thinking about like the wedding. My mom said the bride should always leave at a particular time, and then everybody else can just come back and dance, so that everybody knows that it's okay to go to bed and stuff. But if it looks like we're trickling away, and I just want to thank you again, Mel and Susan, for your time and being so engaging and all your time in preparing for tonight and making this nice to hang out together.
Yeah, no problem. It was good.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thank you.
Learning curve for me too.
Thank you so much, all of you.
Oh,
It was really interesting.
Thanks for
Thanks for
What's that?
We loved seeing Echo.
Yeah, he's sweet. Yeah, you'll have to come by the center and then you can see him in person.
I really want to. So
Mhm.
I'll have to get in touch with you.
I thought he was going to crawl up your sleeve.
He was. He was running up my shoulder and trying to hide under my hair. So yeah.
Well, I remember what Matt or Melvin, you said with your partner, and you had a couple of young bats, or maybe I don't know if they were young, but you had them and they were very, very cuddly. And
yeah,
remember, right?
They are very affectionate. Yeah, especially the babies, because they're mammals, so they're looking for warmth, and they're socially bonding with you when you're raising them as really young pups. So yeah. Even Echo, like once we had him for a while and he got used to us and he knew that we were feeding him regularly, he can be pretty affectionate. He likes to get his hair combed with a little mascara brush every once in a while and getting groomed. Yeah.
You need video of that.
I do. Yeah, I'll film them one day. So.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah,
I love it.
Very cool.
Aw.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks you guys so much. And thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for volunteering. I'll see you soon.
Bye. See you guys.
Bye. Stay safe.
Bye.
Susan and Mel, did you want to stay on for 2 seconds?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys can stay too. Nobody's excluded. I was just going to say, you did such a nice job. Thank you so much.
Oh,
and all the work that you did. You can turn on
Thank
your.
you. Thanks, Susan, for taking most of that talk.
So. I loved the interaction. I think that's what I learned is I think that the slides were awesome.
Yeah, they were.
I think when we interact, it was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So it showed up in everybody's screen time and everything, and the video.
Oh, yeah, you did a great job.
Yeah, the video works.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I was really grateful to have you running it actually, because like people are messaging and my internet died, so I ran out and I'm like, the kids, I'm like, you guys turned everything off. I had warned them.
When I have the screen up, like when I'm it has the slides. for some reason the chat function at the bottom disappears.
It's
I
hard
don't know.
to
Oh.
see.
I haven't
Okay.
figured out how to get that to run because when I had it up, it didn't seem to
Oh,
work for me.
yeah. Yeah.
So I'm running that. I don't know how you would do the chat at the same time. Plus, it would be really distracting. I don't like. It's hard enough just to stay focused.
Mhm.
It is. And
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out is if there's a way to save all the names of the participants, because we had,
Oh,
it wasn't as big as a group as I was hoping, but it was still, I think, a really nice group. But then if you looked, a lot of
Yeah.
people had their partners or the kids or
yeah.
We had
Exactly.
how many? About 20 people?
21.
Oh, I guess
Not
minus
bad.
3.
Minus 3.15 with echo.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
I really thought he was going to go in your shirt. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, this is gonna
Yeah,
get
he
real.
was. He was climbing all over me, and I'm like, okay, he's just, yeah. He was sleeping, and then I took him out, and I don't know what it was because he hasn't been in my apartment for a while, right? So I don't know if he was just stressed because he's like, what's going on? There's too much. So yeah, he was all over the place, and then he finally calmed down for a bit. Yeah, because I was going to take him out at the beginning of the talk, but he was just way too squirmy, and yeah, wasn't having it. So
Yeah, the
Aw.
feeding is good.
yeah, I'm glad he finally kind of, yeah, we got him on there at least.
Yeah.
So
That was pretty cute.
yeah,
Oh, that's
he's
good.
cute.
No, you guys are great. How do you feel about it? Is there anything that you would have changed?
Well, no, I don't know. I think for like I was kind of gearing it towards your volunteers. That's why I kind of just talked about torpor in a big way because
That's
for
cool.
them I thought that was really important. But it seemed like I mean, there's you could talk about bats. I mean, I could talk about bats. You could pick anything, and you could talk for like an hour about like the biodiversity. You remember I did like all the different kinds of bats on the planet. People get really excited about that stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Exactly.
So
And I'd
cool.
say the same. I was gearing it kind of around what we were doing in the survey, but yeah, even with like bat
Good.
rehab and care and all that stuff, again, you could go on about that for hours and hours. So yeah.
You are both so interesting, and I think you play well, really well off of each other too. I
Oh,
don't know if you
good.
noticed that. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
good.
no,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, high
It's
five.
in reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You totally
that's-
do.
That's
It's
good to
nice. You
hear.
complement each other really well. It's not, it's really nice.
Huh.
So
That's good.
I'm glad it worked.
I think people had some good questions too. Oh, I didn't get their
Yeah.
bat poop picture. I'll email them a bat poop picture.
Oh, yeah.
Don't change things though. I got myself all into a world of trouble with stuff on here. Like, I can't see my thing now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys were very supportive and very helpful. So I have it's a very modest little contribution, but I was trying to I was trying to decide last night. I sat here humming and hawing over where that should be. And so I just want each of you just to decide. It's not big at all. But if you guys would like to decide and just send me a note what you think. And I'm all happy to take care of that right away. Unless you know right now, or you can email me. Totally up to you. Zero pressure.
Sorry, I'm looking at the chat.
Oh, are
Yeah,
you?
I haven't looked up. Oh, yeah, Valerie, okay. I wasn't sure if Andrea contacted her or not. I didn't want to bring it up in the meeting, but yeah, so she has it. That's good. We'll get her started there.
Could you sketch
Who
up
was
a
it that wanted
gardening?
owls? Valerie wanted owls.
Valerie
right?
wanted owls, yeah. I mean, we could do something where we have Ophelia and
See,
get one
okay,
of,
I have to tell you one thing, because Susan, you were on such an interesting question, and then the bat was there with food, and I was like, zoink, bat. So
I mean,
just so you
yeah,
don't
and I'm
wave
sorry.
Ophelia around while you're saying something important, because I'm just like,
Oh.
And
What
I
was I talking
apologize
about?
for that because in my mind I was thinking, oh, the COVID slide is the kind of the last slide, and then we're going to go into the thank yous. So I'll go and see if I can get Echo now and bring him on. And I didn't realize that.
We added slides.
No, that wasn't
I
your fault,
know,
Melanie.
and
That
I
was
didn't
me.
clue it
That
until
was
afterwards,
entirely
so
me.
I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't
that's
mean to
okay.
interrupt it.
It was probably a good break actually, because then people got to
Okay.
ask a few questions too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I not answer
No,
a
no,
question?
don't you apologize. I was apologizing for me being distracted because I felt really bad.
You're distracted. I don't even remember. I think I was answering something. I don't even know if I answered the question.
You did. Oh, you did. Yeah, you did. You
Okay.
totally did.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Ophelia would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it. I know. Did you feel better today, Susan?
Oh yeah. I had an Advil. I was fine.
Oh, good.
I don't know what that was.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm good now though.
Yeah.
Yay!
Good.
Well, you
That's
guys are the
awesome.
best. I can't thank you enough. You're so supportive, and Susan doing the slideshow, and both of you getting your intros to
Yeah,
me
thanks for
today,
that.
and your time. And
Well, it was easy for me because I do all the social media stuff, so I have all the photos right there, right?
Okay.
how do you
And-
organize your photos? You just have it in a regular file folder, and that's it? Because I feel like I have mine in some on like Dropbox.
Well, I have a set that I have two laptops now with stuff on them, but it's just that I've accrued a set of, fairly decent bat photos. So because I'm always throwing them up doing media posts. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that helps. That's the hardest part actually with the bat stuff is to get some good bat photos.
Constantly. Yeah. Yeah.
That is fun.
They're hard to get.
That's why you need to do some more video when you brush his hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I will. I'll get the
quiz.
little mascara brush and
Well, did you see the
Done it.
Austin Bat Refuge?
yeah.
They posted that they were combing the red bat's hair.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I posted
Yeah.
it. I reposted on ours. Yeah,
Aw.
people
cool.
love that. They
Yeah.
love that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, hey,
They
you
do.
guys. Since
Yep.
you're both here, when are we going to go for a walk downtown?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
As I look at all of you.
could do this weekend. Like
Uh,
Sunday, maybe? Sunday morning or something?
Yeah, do you want to do morning or night? Like that's one thing.
Oh,
Because we found the bat. When we found bats, that
Yeah.
was usually early in the morning.
Yeah.
But I mean, you guys are the bat experts to know when would be the good time to watch. Like Alan, who was actually on the call today, he saw a bat over the head of the bow building flying around
Yeah.
one night.
Well,
So-
if you wanted to do, although when's night? Night's not until like it's
yeah, it's like 10
It's
10
still
o'clock
light
now,
out.
right?
yeah. If you
It's
wanted
still
to do
light
it, if you put it off a little later, then night comes a little earlier. And I have a few more iPads and EM touches.
Oh, yes.
So we could all have our own bat detector
That would be so cool.
and we could walk downtown just as it gets dark
Yeah.
and you could listen for bats as well.
Sweet.
Oh, yes. Let's do that.
That might be fun.
Yeah.
So could we go early enough that it's light-ish that we could show you
Yeah.
where we find, and we could have a physical look
Yeah.
in case anybody's still roosting in those little weird
Yeah.
spots. And
Yeah.
then, yeah. And then Melissa, yeah, Mel's all over it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got some new toys.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I've asked everybody I know, like, can you give me a bat detector for Christmas or something?
Aw.
Anything? But yeah. Yeah.
wait,
They look
what do you
really
mean the bat detector? Is that the one you plug into your phone or?
Yeah, it's the one Susan has. The one that Susan has. She's gonna get it. Actually, I'm just gonna run and let my dog out quick.
Sorry, buddy. Yeah, of course.
Pajama shirt. Hopefully nobody
Oh, I
saw
like
that.
that. I like that.
So this is the Amazon Fire tablet,
Oh, one of those.
but I have iPads as well. And then it's this thing.
It's that little thing that plugs
Can you
in,
see
right?
it? It's this
But hold it
back-
right in front of your body, maybe. If you hold it right in front, yeah, there we go.
it's right here.
Oh yeah, I remember those because you plugged them in.
Yeah, so you can plug them into your phone or you can plug them into a tablet, right? This is this is the one for the Mac.
Oh, that's a good trick to
see.
put it in front of you because then the other image doesn't.
You see it? Oop.
That is cool. That's for the Mac.
Yeah, so it's got the little
Yeah,
thing for
right.
attaching.
Yeah. I like
Yeah, so
it.
then you just plug it in. You just plug it in, and then this is your iPad. Your iPad is your bat detector, and so it gives you sound, a visual of the echolocation call, and it has an
Right.
auto ID function, so it'll pop up little brown bat, so it'll tell you.
That's right. That's what we were doing in Fish Creek Park that night when I met you
Yes, yes. So yeah, I have a
back
few
in the
more.
day.
The iPads work better than these Fire tablets, and now I have 3 iPads, so you can try
Oh,
it, guys.
okay.
So you can try it.
Huh.
guys.
Sorry.
Huh.
I'll just go back and get him afterwards. He's taking his time.
Your dog?
Sniffing every
Aw,
blade of grass. But
that is so neat. Yeah.
so you showed her the little detector?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. So may I ask you, like, what does one of those run a person?
179 US plus
Yeah.
tax, plus shipping, plus duty. But that's why if you order a bunch of them, it makes it cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, Corey ordered a bunch and just distributed.
Oh, cool.
And
So
then
one of the things we want to do,
Yeah.
I want to do,
What do you
is
want to do, Susan?
I want to put together a because we did last year for our Bat Ambassador program, we did 2 giant bins, really big bins, and they have like 2 bat detectors in them, and a whole bunch of interpretive materials. And one of them went to Cypress Hills Provincial Park.
Oh, wow.
The other one went down to Waterton, and it's to give to interpretive staff so that they can do bat interpretive stuff, and so we're supporting them because we don't have any more bodies, but they have the bodies, but they don't have the materials.
Mm.
So
Are they
we're
like
making,
Parks Canada staff? Is that what they are?
well, it ended up being down in Waterton. It ended up being our one of our coordinators is doing her master's out of Waterton, so she used it down there. And we have a Lethbridge coordinator, and I think he might have used it. I'm not sure. But the provincial park staff, because we were coordinating with Alberta Environment, so the provincial park staff in Cypress Hills, they took it on. They did a bat walk every Friday night. They call them night walks, but they did night walks all summer, and they put stuff. They have a visitor center, and they put some of the stuff in there and used the material. So
Well,
yeah, so it was really good.
I think the 3 of us need to take a trial run downtown.
Yeah.
And show Susan, get some actual, like I
didn't finish what I was saying I was going to do, though. My other thing I'm going to do.
That wasn't it. I thought that was so cool already. The bins and stuff. Okay.
So for this year, I want to do backpack, like a bat backpack.
Oh my gosh, a
cool.
backpack.
So it'll have like our
backpack.
copies of our guidebooks printed.
Nice.
And a tablet with a bat detector that people can borrow. And if they want to go out and do some bat detecting, they can go out and just go and learn about bats on their own.
That's so cool. Yeah.
I tried to I wanted to do it with the library, but they didn't want it.
Really?
I thought that
they just not want the liability of.
I don't know.
Maybe. But that would have made sense though, because they can sign stuff out.
Yeah.
They have a system.
I'm going to talk to Chris Brown down at the Wild Bird Store because she signs out binoculars.
Yes, she does.
So I think she'd be all over this. She'd sign out the backpack. I mean, we're not really worried. I mean, we'd like it to all, come back so people could reuse it, but we're not, worried about whatever that happens.
You're not overly stressed. Not like
have you talked to? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Have you talked to Telespark at all? Like to see if they would take something?
And they don't have people around at night, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true because they're closed at like 5.
Yeah.
By the way, Telespark, speaking of, I drove by them. It was last night. Last night driving to Mel's house, and I'm like, oh, it's just not my tree that has leaves. There's trees with leaves everywhere. I realized how long it's been since I've been in outside world. And I'm driving down Deerfoot, and I'm like, look at everything out here. And they're like, where's Telespark? And I'm like, look at the glass on Telespark. On the top of it?
Yeah. Yes. And did you see Turk? Was Turk hanging out there?
Oh no, shoot. I should have gone to look for Turk.
Yeah, he's been there the last couple of weeks. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Turk,
Ramsey turkey.
Turk Diggler. Yeah. He was hanging out there, and he was looking at his
reflection.
reflection in the window. So when I saw him a couple of days, I was driving past, and he just like, he's hanging out there looking at himself in the window because he's looking for a mate. Yeah, it's sad.
Girlfriend.
Yeah.
Could we get like a neutered girlfriend or spayed girlfriend so that we don't like suddenly in 10 years we're talking about that Kathleen bought a female turkey and now we're overrun and we have no
Yeah.
species
You'll be
left.
like Calgary Zoo with the squirrels, releasing squirrels into Alberta.
I just think he needs
Yeah.
a girlfriend.
That's where
I
they came
wouldn't
from?
do it, just for the
Yep.
record. If a female shows up, it was not me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
Where
do
did he
that.
come from, do you think?
I think
Some-
he escaped or something, right? From a, I
Farm?
don't know, from a farm or a slaughterhouse.
It's
or
yeah, probably.
because the Lilydale's right there where he
It's
came
too bad
from.
because the zoo used to have turkeys, but they all died because there's a fox that lives around there. So he killed all the turkeys at the zoo, which is just a year too late. Because he could have found Brenda was one female that was still left, and then Brenda got killed like last year. But yeah, the gray squirrels in Alberta came from the Calgary Zoo.
Idiots.
So the Calgary Zoo back in the 70s got some squirrels from the Toronto Zoo and had them on display because they thought it was a good idea. And then they decided they didn't want these squirrels on display anymore, so they just let them go. And I guess they figured that they wouldn't survive here. They just die out, but no, they did not.
If we
So
got lots of turkeys, maybe they'd eat the squirrels.
yeah.
Just kidding.
There's more meat on a turkey.
Did you get a fox kitten today?
No, but is there, do you know?
There was a
of one?
call out for a pickup. of a
Oh,
fox.
that's great. Well, I hope we get it because it'll go to Cochrane Ecological. So they have 2 older fox kits that we gave to them. And
Oh,
then they
okay.
have one younger one, and we're looking for another younger one to go in with that other smaller one that they have. So they can
Yeah.
have, yeah.
I'm just looking back for the email.
Yeah, it probably came in after I left, or yeah.
Great horned owl out in, oh yeah, Mike Knight that has baby birds and a fox kit, hopefully not together.
Okay.
That needs to be picked up. That was at 9:41, and I was at work because I do driving for them, Susan. So I haven't hacked into the Calgary wildlife system. I do the driving, and you get a call out for when an animal needs to be picked up. And I was literally sitting at my desk, and I saw that. I'm like, oh, am I sick? Maybe I'm sick. Maybe I need to go. I'm suddenly sick and need to leave work to go pick up a fox kit. So yeah, and I did see that Cochrane later posted something about a fox kit, but maybe it's their older ones that we're talking
No,
about.
I think, yeah, I'm not sure if they got those because usually I think McKnight typically gives stuff to AWIC. So I don't know if we would have gotten, yeah, but they might have called us because they didn't have another driver.
Yeah, okay. And
So do you have your rabies shots?
I don't.
You should.
Yeah.
If you're picking up fox kits.
Yeah. Any mammal, really.
If we pick them up as a driver, they're already in a box. It's a fox in a box.
But it could get out.
I guess if the fox in the box got out in my car.
The whole rescue program that they have kind of set up, I want that changed badly. Like I want to actually, create like a professional rescue program and make sure everybody's trained and they have all their vaccinations and stuff like that.
You should have.
But I know, like with AWIC and with us, it was just, there's no money, right? So it's just volunteers that, hey, we need you to go grab this. So that's kind of how it's traditionally happened in Alberta for the last while. But
I was looking into it and then COVID happened. I was trying to get that figured out, and it is pretty expensive, like you were saying. And I did talk to my doctor, and I think they referred me to a travel clinic, which then again costs quite a bit. But
like Susan said, just say you came in contact with a.
Well, just tell them you've been handling wild mammals. Is that a problem? And if you call the rabies hotline and you tell them that, or the Alberta Health, they'll go, what?
Hopefully.
Daily.
So
they'll freak out.
We get clinics set up through
You don't even have-
CWS, and we tried to get all our volunteers, our education volunteers, all our volunteers, and the clinic said no, they would only vaccinate our staff. But we're like, well, volunteers are handling these animals too, and they just said no, because I think there was a shortage of the vaccine.
There was last year.
Yeah. So I don't know, like, yeah. if
Okay,
you
what,
call-
here's one fear that I had. Like I told you guys, like we found the 5 bats last year, and 4 of them we managed to pick up. All 5 were attempted rescues, but the 5th one is the one where I really want to show you guys. I think I got to show you, Mal,
Yeah.
where it hid
Under
back
the grate.
in. Actually, if I actually have the yeah, like there was definitely yeah, show you later. But yeah, it was just under the building, and as we were trying to catch it, it's like it went into the building. Like
Yeah, there's probably a
we kept-
space.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it just seems very odd.
Well, they
I
say
guess
that.
this is ground level.
Yeah. Well, one of the like when I was doing the bats and buildings assessment thing, I'm doing some reading. If you have an exterior door with a gap underneath it, bats will sometimes go under the door. So it's not always that they're looking at the top of the building.
Mhm.
They will also go under and low.
You know, that makes sense. Like, would these be
That
normally
makes
rock
sense, yeah.
dwelling kinds of bats? Because like Mel's been teaching me too about there's a more rock dwelling, right?
The crevices and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. 'cause
Bats
the
will do
crevices
it.
often the cracks may be under.
They'll do anything.
Weird.
Yeah.
There's
So here's my fear. So we found these bats last year. Every single bat that Calgary Migratory found last year, I was there. Every one of them. I'm like, I'm one of the few that didn't have rabies shot.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh look, there's another bat. Which of course was super exciting. But I actually got really paranoid after. Like we took it into Mal, and then I was like, did I touch it? Like I had a glove. Like, was there a moment? And I started getting kind of freaked out. My fear was, like, if I was actually really scared, I would have just gone in. I knew I was just being, you know.
you should have went in.
But
They
would
would have
they
given you your
have
shots for
been?
free.
But would they then have required the bat to be euthanized? That's what I was worried about.
You don't go and tell them until after they let the bat go.
Yeah. They have in the past have asked us
Except
to
then
put
that could be
animals
months.
down.
What's
What's
that?
that?
Oh,
I was gonna
because like
say-
if it was those guys, they were gonna be overwintered. So I'd be long dead.
Yeah. And I know Alberta Health has asked us to euthanize animals before, bats and a skunk. They will ask us, but yeah, if you kind of go in and we can just say, oh, that bat was released. We didn't know that it, came in contact or whatever.
You just say it got released.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, that protocol never made any sense to me.
Yeah.
Because they'll give you the rabies shots anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
they kill the bat and send it away for rabies testing, but you've already had the rabies shots.
Exactly.
So there's nothing more they can do. It's just kind of adding to their statistics.
Yeah.
So it's not really necessary. Like,
Yeah.
you
I
just
agree.
assume you've had exposure.
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
And
And
just
it's
get the
kind of
shots, yeah.
unfortunate that they do that because it does, as the rescuer, it does make you hesitate. I can tell you. Because
Well,
right? Because
well,
if it was just, if I knew the bat would be safe and I'm just being a little bit paranoid, then go in and get checked. But if I'm just
Next
being a
time
little
you
bit
pick
paranoid
up a
enough-
baby fox, just say it got loose in my car.
I think this is a razor scratch.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Well, and you
Yeah,
could
there you
wait
go.
until after you've taken it to the rescue and it's been released or something. You go, last month I was, because they'll still give you the rabies shots because if you haven't
Oh,
because
I
if you
get it.
haven't had the symptoms appear yet,
Yeah.
you're still fixable. It's once your symptoms show up that
Oh.
you're dead, basically.
Yeah.
'Cause once you start showing symptoms, then they can't help you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you haven't had the symptoms, and it varies depending on the person and where the bite or the exposure was, and
Right.
a whole bunch of different factors with rabies that make it kind of weird.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they'll still give you the rabies shots.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Or just
Yeah, I
tell
didn't
them
figure that out.
I was playing with a little baby fox and it was licking me, and they'll just be like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god!"
And say that was. You could say that was a month
Kinda
ago, and I
twitching
think
now.
they released that fox, but. Somebody told me that I should probably have got my rabies shots. And they'll go,
Yeah.
yes, you should. And then they'll send you off to get them. You'll get,
Mhm.
but you'll get an extra one. You'll get the immunoglobulin shot.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you get an extra. If you get
Oh.
it as a post-exposure prophylaxis, you get the gamma globulin or immunoglobulin. It
Yeah.
basically just boosts your immune system. Not a bad thing to have these days anyway. And then you get the series of 4 rabies shots. So you'll get the 2 shots at the beginning, and then every week afterwards, you'll have to go back in for a shot.
Hey, Charles.
Well, I definitely want it. That's for darn sure. And I want to
Yeah.
go for a walk with you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to show you the
Yeah.
buildings. Because even if we do like a 20-minute where I can show you the buildings and get your scientific thought, and then go for a longer walk later, totally in.
Well, we could go. It'd be still daylight. I mean, the bats. It's a half hour after sunset, so if we're down there an hour before,
Yeah.
wander around.
Yeah. It's
That's
still
true.
light.
And we could social distance. We could all go to our respective favorite fast food places and have a walking picnic while we visit
Yeah.
and look for bats.
Wow.
Sounds like the best day ever,
Sounds
actually.
cool.
So if you guys know a day, I'm in.
Well, it has to be warm,
Yeah.
Yep.
and preferably that the sun doesn't set at 11.
Yes, exactly.
All
'Cause that'll be
right.
a
I'm not a
long
very-
night.
I'm a crappy bat biologist these days. I get sleepy.
Oh, I hear you. It's because these women keeping you up all night doing presentations and stuff. I couldn't believe it last night. I felt so bad. And now I'm doing it to you again.
That's
My
right.
phone is going off and I can't find it. It's buried under my couch cushion.
All I can see is the screens moving.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, there it is.
Hey, you know what? You know what fun thing I found tonight when I
What
was
did you
setting up like the settings for video on Zoom.
Yeah.
The thing that's enhance your features button.
Oh, what? You didn't tell us this before?
So we
What?
could like
I would have told you, but everybody was there when I got on. I mean,
That's right. I know. I came back. I'm like, oh my god, there's people on here. I'm like, oh
yeah,
no.
I was sitting there going,
I didn't
hi.
even get to brush my hair, people. I went from work and my daughter. I was
It
so
looks
funny.
good.
You look great. You look
Thank
marvelous.
goodness I showered this morning.
You look
Carolyn's
marvelous.
boyfriend came home at like, thank you, at like 3.
you do.
And I'm like, I'm in here twitching because I'm so hungry. I didn't stop for food.
Oh,
I
no.
have to admit, don't tell anybody, but I did spend a little extra time on a break confirming Paloma this morning.
Oh,
That's amazing though that she's doing that. Yeah.
yeah, that's good.
Paul.
That's so
Paul's
great.
really cool. I have to try to figure out how to spin that so it doesn't sound like a corporate thing because it sounds dry, but I think it'll be pretty cool. But
What
that's good, of course.
the guy with the stripes on the windows?
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
think people are totally into that because they want to know what to do. There's
Yeah.
so many people with bird strikes, right? And they're out there with their chalk markers and they get washed off in the rain, and so
Yeah.
they need stickers, right?
Yeah, I have. You can
Yeah.
actually see on mine still from Global. I had my.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, that's cool.
That's actually the
Oh,
design I
nice.
have on my back windows, though.
Global news.
Yeah.
Huh. That's
Yeah.
too funny.
And
You
you know
do
what?
wake
It
up.
still gives me anxiety to see it because I'm like, are we on air yet? Huh. And then I'm like, oh no, it's in the past. We're good.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
See, I don't do well when you only have like this much time and you have to get all the words in.
Oh, I don't know if
Yeah,
you
I don't
saw
like
that,
that
but at the
either.
end I was like, oh, and by the way, if you can see through the windows in your background, you want to look at that, you know, by the way, there's a good, there's this, talking
Yeah.
right over, and she's like, I got another guest. You can see, she's like, oh, and that's very interesting. Shut up. We're not inviting you back.
That's
Oh,
funny.
No, you did good. You did really well.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you did.
Oh, hi.
Oh look, hi Kitty.
This is Echo the Bat.
Aw.
Yeah, he's a good boy. You know, he's like so insanely itchy these days. He will run around the house like as if something's chasing him. I called the vet. They think it might be a little neuroses from life changing. She's like, are you working from home now? I'm like, yeah. She's like, that might be why. And I'm like, Thanks.
You
So
didn't
me being
change
home's
his
a
diet or
problem.
anything? Did you change
Yes.
his diet?
Yeah, we have, and he's on a puffer because he's asthmatic. So I was wondering if that was
Okay.
doing it.
It could, and
Sorry, got the wrong
and if
end
the
of the cat here.
diet's changed, then it could be something in there that's irritating him, right? That's causing
Yeah.
it. Hi, kitty.
He says
Yeah.
thanks. He's the one on the big wheel. Aw.
right.
Well, you guys let's do this more often. We could even do
Yeah.
it when you're not publicly presenting if you'd like.
Okay, sounds good. I have to go and deal with this whole crazy situation now and staffing.
Oh yeah. So are they really sick, or are they just at home sick?
Well,
Yeah,
I
what's
got
up?
a text. She's like, I just got admitted into the hospital. I've been having problems with breathing. And she goes, the
Uh-oh. No, did we
symptoms are
not?
like COVID. The doctors are concerned I have COVID. She said they tested me and I'm hoping to have the results by tomorrow. But she said I obviously won't be able to come into work because I've been isolated and quarantined. And yeah, so now I'm just like, I have to arrange for tomorrow. But if she does come back positive, yeah, I've got to look into that. Like, what do we do? Like,
Oh boy.
we'd have to close to the public, I would imagine. We can't close the center because we have animals there, so we'd have to have some staff available to go care for them. But
And then what happens? Like, do you have to look then at every animal she's been in touch with and everything too? Like, does it go that far? I guess you don't know.
I don't think so. And I put in pretty strict protocols, so
Yeah.
everybody has to wear gloves and a mask and all that stuff. So there really shouldn't have been much interaction, like in terms of her passing anything on to animals.
Yeah.
Potentially with other staff, yes, because if they all went to the lunchroom and she's taken her mask off to eat or whatever, who knows, right? There could have been
Yeah.
something on. So all of the staff obviously are going to have to go get tested now. And then,
Oh boy.
yeah.
Oh dear, I'm really sorry. We'll keep it
Well,
all,
I just
obviously we'll
hope
keep it
she's
on the down
okay.
low because that's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah. I just hope she's okay. Like I just really hope she's okay. She's younger and I'm hoping she'll just, who knows, it could just be allergies or cold or whatever. We don't know.
Yeah, that's true, right? There's a lot of other things. Even when
my
I called
kids are all stuffed up right now because it's allergy season.
Yeah, exactly. So
and how do you know?
you don't know. So
You
They
get
can't
yeah.
breathe.
Yeah.
Not breathing's a problem.
that's
I've heard
and
this.
I asked her, I'm like, do you have asthma? She's like, not that I know of.
Oh.
So that's
good.
kind of concerning, but yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean,
Yeah, because she
good
just
in
all of
that
a
she won't be
sudden,
as bad. Like, it should be easier for her to heal, right? If she doesn't have it, but then bad if she's that sick without
Yeah.
having asthma.
yeah,
And then you have asthma, so
I
that's
have
not good.
asthma. Yeah. So
Okay.
we just have to wait, I guess, tomorrow. But in the meantime, I do have to call a couple people back and look into, like, we have to prepare in case she is positive. So I need to find out what the next steps are. Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, first of all, you guys smile because Pez is in front of the.
Yay.
There we go. I have a great group
I
picture.
need Echo.
Oh. Oh, do you have Echo in your hand still?
No, he's
Echo's in bed.
he's sleeping.
I actually screenshot a few times. So if I got any good ones,
okay.
And I started recording 20 minutes in.
Oh.
Well, you recorded something. Yeah.
It was the first time through.
Oh, I need reminders.
You'll get better at this.
Yes, exactly. It's all practice. Yeah.
Well, listen, you guys, it's such a pleasure. Love you guys to pieces. Thank you for everything you do.
If you get feedback on what people liked and what they thought could be better, love to hear that, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You saying that, I've got a text from Anne. That was awesome. Well done.
Oh, good.
TJ, that was an awesome presentation tonight, Kathleen. Thanks to Mel and Susan for an informative session. Can't wait for next week.
Oh, good. That's great.
That was TJ, our artist. And I think you saw the bat pictures. I think so. Did you?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. You did.
He's the artist. So.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you
Well-
go have a good night, and
Yeah, you too.
I'll try to sleep after
guys.
that. That was very exciting.
Oh, good. Good.
Promise me we'll go for a walk again, and I'll actually let you off the phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
and
Anytime.
send me your
Any-
favorite organization that you would like a small, modest contribution towards. Okay, or I could leave
Oh.
you something at Wild Bird store. Credit towards a treat. So
Well,
you
we
can
have a
go.
donate button on our website. You just
Wait,
donate to
on
Alberta
your-
Bats.
You want to do Alberta Bats? I
Sure.
will do that. No problem. I just wasn't sure if it was like too obvious. Do you want me to be more exotic, or I do that?
No,
I could do that.
that'd be fine.
Okay.
And
then
you
let me
can
know.
you can do mine to Alberta Bats too. Yeah.
Well, to
Aww.
Alberta Bat.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. Well, we have our shower coming up. So we have our baby shower coming up. So it's kind of, yeah,
Oh.
that's happening in June. So we should be getting some attention around that.
Well,
So,
let
yeah.
me know,
Yeah.
or like tag me in those posts, and I'll
Okay.
repost it to our Facebook site, our Alberta Bats site, and our Twitter.
Okay, cool. I will.
I don't
Oh,
know how to
wow,
repost
yeah.
anything on Instagram. I'm
Yeah.
I don't
I
get that
don't e-
either.
I'm
Yeah.
an idiot. I'm an idiot.
I don't
on
even
Instagram.
I don't use Twitter either. I just Facebook. That's it.
Oh, Twitter.
That's why we
actually,
hire the younger people. We're like, here's the social media stuff. Just go crazy.
no,
So
I like
the
Twitter.
joke about Twitter though is that you can talk about your kids because your kids won't be on it because it's people.
Oh,
my age.
really? Is it just for like? Oh,
Twitter's more
interesting.
sciencey.
Okay.
There's a
Yeah.
lot
I
of
would probably like it then. Yeah.
That bot, I know you have to go, but the scientist studying, a researcher studying window strikes out east, he set up a bot on Twitter that every time
Oh.
somebody puts in a certain number of words and he changes it to try to catch all of them,
Yeah.
but window, bird, strike, stunned, whatever it is, hummingbird window. He set it up, I think, a few weeks ago or a month ago. He's over
Okay.
4,000 hits from people tweeting about window strikes.
That's really
There's-
sad.
There's a Twitter
Hang on, I gotta
conference
get my
on right
dog.
now for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
It's a bat conference from the UK, and it's
Right.
they organize it, and it's a Twitter conference, and it's people are posting, like you can go to their website and it gives you the abstract, and then
Mhm.
the person it's posted at a certain time, and I guess you can ask questions because they'll be there, and they post a thread of 5 tweets that sort of summarizes their research.
Oh,
And then you
wow.
can ask them questions so you can like follow along. It's like a bat conference, but on Twitter.
Okay, that is really cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had never seen anything like that.
Hmm.
If you look on our Alberta Bats page, I reposted that.
I did see that. That is what it, yes. Okay, I'll look at a little bit more at it.
Yeah,
I see.
it's quite. If you go back to the post that I posted, and you go to
Yeah.
their website on that post, it's quite interesting. And then you can go and they have like a schedule for the next 3 days. So every 15 minutes, it has like a paper being presented, just like at a
Oh.
conference.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, we'll check that out for sure. Well,
And
you
you
guys
missed that
look
there's-
beautiful tonight, by the way. Mal, you did your makeup and everything and your hair.
Yeah.
I
You
took
guys
a
look
shower.
great.
What's that?
You guys look great.
Oh,
I might
thanks.
try brushing my hair one day.
I don't know. I find like I've got, oh, that's a long piece. I need to trim my bangs a little better.
Well, I'm always in trouble if I need to
That
use my
looks
glasses
good.
because then this happens and I can't, I like either my hair.
Can't see.
I know, it's terrible. Oh, well, I'll let you guys
It looks
go. So
good.
now could go deal with your crisis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stay in touch.
Okay.
Let us know if we can be of any support.
Take care.
Like playing with your
Yeah,
box
you
kit.
too. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Susan. Thank you, Mel. You
Yeah, no
rock.
problem.
See you
Okay.
guys.
Sweet
Have a good night.
Later, dudes.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
I can figure out how to turn this off now. Okay.
I know, right? Take care, Susan.
Oh,